Hello, everyone. Today I'll be presenting my research on visualization and image making as it pertains to Buddhist meditation throughout history. I became interested in this topic just kind of when I realized how visualization practices appear across different Buddhist traditions. And I also have some experience visualizing for my own athletics in the past. So through this video, I hope to give you a better understanding of these fascinating practices and even let you experience a brief visualization exercise yourself. So just to give some quick background, looking at specifically what is visualization. So essentially, it's the practice of intentionally generating mental imagery for spiritual development. Many people assume that visualization is primarily found in later Buddhist traditions like Tibetan Tantra or Pure Land Buddhism, but we'll see that visual elements have been integral to Buddhist practice from the beginning. What makes this topic particularly interesting is how visualization practices bridge the mind-body divide, and they're not just mental exercises, but fully embodied practices that transform both perception and physiology. So, moving briefly into some historical context of Buddhist visualization, we can trace elements back to the earliest Buddhist texts. For example, bear with me on this one, Satipatthana Sutta, often considered a foundational meditation text, we find instructions for contemplating sorry, lost my train of thought there. We find instructions for contemplating a decomposing corpse and applying that visualization to one's own body. This was a central practice of early Buddhism, not a later addition. And as Buddhism spreads across Asia, these visualization practices evolved differently in various cultural contexts. We saw elaborate Pure Land visualizations in China, all the way to the complex deity yoga in Tibet. But throughout all this, they maintain connections to core Buddhist principles across these transformations. So, just to kind of give some overviews to the thesis of my larger presentation and larger essay, my research is arguing that visualization has served as a versatile and adaptable meditation technique throughout Buddhist history, reflecting broader currents in Buddhist thought rather than representing a single practice with a unified origin. Visualization practices evolved in response to changing cultural contexts while maintaining connections to foundational Buddhist principles. And I think that rather than seeing visualization as a departure from original Buddhism and more of a westernized form of Buddhism, we should understand it as a creative adaptation of the core principles that respond to different practitioners' needs across time and even cultures. So, moving into just kind of the first argument of my research, early Buddhist visualization. Essentially, um, the Buddha would use vivid visuals occurring like a raging wildfire as teaching opportunities. And so he once even asked his disciples whether they would prefer to embrace a beautiful woman or the fire. And using that kind of stark visual image, he was trying to illustrate the consequences of just ethical misconduct in general. If we look at some Chinese Buddhist developments, we can see that like in the 5th century, for China, we see a significant development with texts called contemplation scriptures. The most famous is the Scripture of Contemplation of the Buddha of Immeasurable Life. One of the writers that I look at in my broader essay, Eric Green, his research shows that these scriptures weren't simply visualization manuals as previously thought, but they actually describe a complex relationship between active visualization and spontaneous confirmatory visions that validate successful meditation. So rather than just instructing practitioners to visualize predetermined scenes, these texts suggested a way more dynamic process where practitioners both generated images and receive unexpected visions that they could also interpret from there. Now, if we want to move into just some material context, because in this sense they do matter. Um, Looking at another writer that my paper looks at, Karen O'Brien Kopp, she analyzes the Quetzal Yoga Manual and Buddhist cave temples in general, and she highlights how the physical environments in these temples shape a lot of visualization practices. Um, a lot of what she's arguing is that this material context of a visualization practice is extremely important in shaping the visualization itself. And so a lot of her argument revolves around the fact that these caves really create the conditions necessary for the practice. Looking at some contemporary applications and tying this kind of into sport, um, you know, these practices that may come across and even seem ancient, we can find that they kind of serve as um, you know, a modern activation in the sports world. And it's one of those things where by integrating all the senses into this visualization practice, we know through science that this does help us grow as athletes. Because not only are we mentally preparing, but we are also kind of triggering those mirror neurons that are going to make us perform better in the moment. Just kind of to close out with some major takeaways before we move into a quick visualization practice. Um, in general, visualization has been integral to Buddhism from its earliest phases, not just a later development. Again, these practices aren't just mental exercises, but embodied techniques that in turn transform both mind and body. Um, Finally, just the material context, kind of what we were talking about with those caves shaping the visualization, it does matter. And it's also worth noting that our understanding of Buddhist visualization has really been shaped by Western concepts. So, like the term visualization itself emerged from um, like the late 19th century during experimental psychology, and it really just carries assumptions about agency and control that may not align with traditional Buddhist understandings. So now to move into a brief visualization exercise. I hope that first part of the presentation was informative and now we can kind of mentally relax. But I'm going to guide you through a brief visualization practice, kind of like what we do during class. So I invite you all to get comfortable. Could be seated, could be laying down. There's really no right or wrong way to experience this. Just yeah, get comfortable. So now that we're comfortable, let's take a few deep breaths, allowing your body to really kind of soak into each exhale. Feel the floor melt away underneath you. Notice any areas of tension throughout your body and kind of soften all of those. And as you kind of find that point of relaxation, allow your eyes to naturally close and bring your awareness to your breath for a few moments. Now, I'd like you all to imagine yourself in a peaceful, natural setting, perhaps a forest clearing or a mountaintop. What colors do you see? What textures really engage all five of the senses? You might hear some leaves rustling or distant trickle of water in a stream. Um, hear the wind going through the branches. Now that we've created this environment, let's really focus in on this idea of light. Is it bright or subtle? Is it, you know, what color is it? Is the pulse steady? Are there leaves that are blocking it at points? And really feel this light touching your body, flowing down through your head, shoulders, torso, legs, all the way down to your feet. And really let this light kind of represent a clarity, or an understanding and wisdom that's spreading across your body. Now, as we move forward into the closing of this practice, gradually let this light fade. Allow yourself to tap back into the physical surroundings around you, and open your eyes. Open your eyes. I'd just like to thank you for watching this video. I hope uh, the first part was informative, and I hope that last part was relaxing. This is the works cited for what I was presenting, and yeah, keep on keeping on. Enjoy the rest of the class.